So we ordered this non-branded, nondescript Sidestep for our 2014 Dodge Ram 1500. Came in today. It's the brand right here is called LLN SE Auto, and compared to some of the other name brands out there like AMP and the original Mopar parts, this one here is like a third of the price. We're going to take a look and put it in use and actually see how it performs. You know, that old thing, or that old adage, you get what you pay for. I've learned that in my life to be true, but sometimes you can luck out and get something that's functional at a lesser cost, and that's what we're hoping this will be. All right, here's our Sidestep. This is what came in the box. I got the main step itself. It looks like a bracket that mounts to the frame, and a packet of bolts. My first impressions are this is pretty heavy aluminum type material, and the Sidestep itself, heavy duty plastic. I think for what I'm going to use it for, I mean, it's one of those items where it's a convenience. It's not something that I'm using every single day, but we're going to give it some effort, and we'll come back and give you a report as to how we think it holds up once it's installed and in use. All right, we're putting this together, getting it ready for installation on the truck. First thing I did was I checked these bolts here. This assembly came just like this. I want to make sure that step was tight, and the direction says that's a 13/16 hex, and I didn't have one, so I used a T30 Torx bit right here, and it worked fine, and they did need to be tightened down, so I would check that prior to putting this together. The next step is to take this bracket here, and it installs right here on top of this, so we're going to get that done next. All right, the package came with 4 bolts. We have the 2 small ones, and then we have the 2 longer ones, and the longer ones will go in this main bracket that's going to bolt to the back of the truck where the bumper's at, and then they go right here. We're going to put this spacer on that recommends from the directions, and then we're going to bolt this down, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, I got these bolts tightened down and got our bracket put on our step. 21-30 seconds is what I used here, just alternating back and forth till I got them as tight as I possibly could. I didn't use my torque wrench on them, but I'm pretty confident they're pretty snug. All right, on to the next step. All right, our next step is to remove these bolts right here, which are to the bracket of the bumper, and that's the next step here. And it says to use a 17mm socket, so we'll get that removed, and then we'll check to see if this bracket here is in the way. If it is, then we might have to take that off as well. Let's get these bolts out and see where we're at. All right, I ended up getting the bolts out of the bumper bracket right here, and this bracket right here, I ended up taking the bolt out right here on the ledge, and I've bent it out of the way for right now. I'm going to see if I can make it work without having to remove the other 2 bolts. If it's still in the way, then we'll remove them. But now it's to mount up the step, and the directions recommend that we use the new bolts that come, and I just checked them, and they do thread in properly. I use a 17mm to get these out, so make a note of that. That's what you'll need. All right, I got this bracket zip tied up out of the way. I think I'm gonna have enough clearance for this step to go on. That way I didn't have to take it all the way off. And I did that on purpose. Mainly, I'm testing this step out. If I don't like it, I might end up putting that bracket back down and finding something else a little better quality. This is a $100 step, and we're gonna give it a good workout and see if it's worth it. Only because I'm not gonna be using it like 24/7, 7 days a week. All right, here's where we're at so far. I got the bracket mounted to the bumper that holds the step, and I used my 17mm socket, and I've hand tightened them as far as I can get them. Now I'm going to take my wrench and tighten them down, and so far this is what we got, what it's looking like, and then we'll see if this thing functions properly. Want to make a quick correction. I was actually using a 15mm socket on those bolts that go to the bumper instead of a 17. I just want to make that clarification. All right, here's what we got. The bolts that came with the kit. I used them again. I used a 15mm in here, and I got them snugged down. Didn't have any torque pressure pounds that you should use in the directions, so I just did it by hand as tight as I felt comfortable. But this is what the step looks like from the back, and right now it feels like it's pretty sturdy. We're going to test it out, and we'll give some feedback on it in a couple weeks. All right, try to finish up here. Here's what our $100 step looks like from the back of the truck. I've got it extended, and again, I just took my foot and pop it up. Seems to set pretty good against the bumper. Being black, it blends in with our black truck. Standing on it here, it feels like it's solid enough for what I need. We'll see how it holds up, see if it comes loose, but for the little bit that we're using it, I think it might be a little handy option. We'll give you some more feedback, but it does seem pretty sturdy, and right now I'm going to say I would recommend it. The install was pretty easy on this truck, and again, I did it by myself, didn't have any help. So let's just take a look at this in the next couple weeks, and I'll let you know how it's doing. All right, here's a quick rundown of what we did today. These are the instructions that came with the Sidestep, and they're saying step 1 was to mount the assembly unit to this bracket, which is what I did, and these bolts are provided for that option. Then number 2, they're showing you the completed assembly. Number 3, this is bracket here that was in the way. I had this bracket, and I took off this one bolt here, and I bent the bracket up, and I zip tied it out of the way, and that worked perfectly. That way I didn't have to take off the other 2, because again, I'm going to decide if this Sidestep is worth the $100 that I spent on it, and if so, we'll keep it. And right now, that bracket's out of the way, and it's still there if I needed it in the future. This is where we took the bolts off from the bumper, and again, I used a 15mm socket to get them off. I did pre-lubricate them the day before because they were pretty rusty. Then we come to the back side, and then they want you to take the whole assembly and again bolt it back to the bumper bracket. And again, I used a socket, 15mm, and I put an extension on it this time because the thickness of this bracket needed a little more room to get a clearance here past this little round part so that I could get a good torque on it. And then showing here the step should be put on. Well, mine assembly came with the step already on it, and I did torque down these bolts again and to make sure that they were pretty tight. And then the assembly, once I bolted it on, I didn't use a torque wrench because there's nothing here to say about torque pounds, so I did it by hand, and then I checked for function, and I opened and closed it many times, stood on it. Seems to work for what I need it for. Again, this is not a daily work truck, but at the same time, it is lifted 2 inches, so that's another reason why I wanted this step. Make it easier to get in and out of the back without having to use a step stool or climb up. We'll give you another update on this review in a few weeks once we've had time to work this step and actually see that it's holding up pretty good. And then we'll give you a final recommendation. I hope this helps if you purchase this one from Amazon.